Okay, welcome back everybody to a brand new chapter. And this chapter is about solid geometry. We'll talk about a lot of definitions first and give some examples of what we're talking about. So let's take a look at what we're talking about when we're talking about a solid. A solid is a three-dimensional figure that's made up of flat or curved surfaces. So you have a little drawing there, and we're going to talk about some of the parts. First, a face is just a flat surface. So you can see that shape that looks like maybe a shoebox. It's a rectangular prism, but you see that it has six faces that are flat. Another term that we can talk about is an edge. So an edge is where two faces come together. So it's an intersection, it's a line segment. A vertex of a solid is a point where the intersection of three or more faces come together. So you see a point there on that figure, which represents a vertex. Okay, let's talk about some types of solids. First of all, a prism. A prism is formed by two parallel congruent polygonal bases connected by faces that are parallelograms. So in this figure, you see the top and bottom of the shape are triangles, and they're congruent and they're parallel, and they're joined together by faces, which are parallelograms. So that's a prism. Next is a cylinder. You probably have seen those before. A cylinder is formed by two parallel congruent circular bases and a curved surface which connects the bases. So you see in the little diagram there that the bases are circles, and then the side of the cylinder is a curved surface which connects those bases. You might have also seen pyramids before. It's one of our major shapes. A pyramid is formed by polygonal base. So the base of the pyramid can be any polygon. Here you see a square. Could be anything, could be a hexagon or a pentagon or whatever. But the base will be a polygon, and the triangular faces will meet together at a point called the vertex. So you see the vertex there, and then the triangles on the side. Those are the faces. That'll make a pyramid. A cone has a circular base. You can see that there, and a curved surface which connects the base to a vertex. So the vertex is on top. And another shape that you're probably familiar with is a cube. So a cube is a prism with six square faces. So you see a cube there. Okay. Um, let's look at what a net is. And we'll look at some examples for a net. Okay, first of all, there's a definition of a net there. So a net is a diagram. It's really a diagram of the surfaces of a three-dimensional figure, which can be folded up to make that three-dimensional figure. So if you look at example A there on the left, you see the shape, which is a net. It's kind of like a three-dimensional figure that got unfolded, and now you're going to fold it back. So you can see that the ends are triangles. There you see those. And then these three rectangles there would be the sides. And so if you folded that back up, sometimes you have to use your imagination, but you're going to have a triangular prism where the bases are congruent triangles and the sides are these parallelograms. So that's the net for a triangular prism. If you look at figure B here, you can see that you have a square, and then you have attached to the edges of the square a triangle. So if this were paper and you folded up these triangles, they would meet at the top at the vertex, and you'd have a square pyramid. It's called a square pyramid after the base of the pyramid. Okay, look down here at this first shape down there, the purple one. So there's the net again. So if you folded that together, what would you have? Well, this time the base is a triangle, whereas you up here in the orange one you had a square, but this is a triangular base, but still the faces of these are triangles. So if you folded this thing up, the triangular faces would meet together at the vertex, and you would have a triangular pyramid. So again, the name of the pyramid depends on the base, what kind of polygon the base is. And then this other shape here at the bottom right is a cylinder. It looks strange, but this rectangle, if you folded that together into a tube, you'd have a cylinder, and then you could just fold these flaps up. Those would be the circles that make up the cylinder. So again, this is the net of a cylinder. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at cross sections. That's our next topic. Okay, so what is a cross section? A cross section is an intersection of a three-dimensional figure and a plane. So if you can take a look at their example 3A, you see a triangular pyramid. And if you took a cross section, that orange plane, and intersected that pyramid parallel to the base, you would see another triangle for the cross section, but it's smaller than the base. So it'd be similar, mathematically similar. Look at B, where you got the cylinder, and you ran a plane parallel to the base. The cross section this time would be another circle, just like the bases, and it would be congruent. Look at figure 3A there, you have let's see, you got hexagon base, so you got a hexagonal prism. And when you run a plane parallel to the bases, the intersection of that plane and that prism would be a hexagon, which is congruent to the bases. And finally, in the last picture there at the bottom right, you see a cone, but this time the cross section is not parallel to the base, it's actually perpendicular to the base. So you're not going to get the same figure as the base, you're going to get something else. In this case, it's going to be a triangle. The cross section is a triangle. So again, a cross section is just a intersection of a plane and a three-dimensional solid. Okay, so to kind of summarize what we talked about in this lesson, so we talked about what a three-dimensional figure is. We talked about faces, edges, vertices. We talked about types of three-dimensional solids, which a prism, a cylinder, a pyramid, and a cone. We talked about also a cube. And then we talked about a net. A net is basically, remember, it's just if you took that solid and kind of cut it apart and flatten it out, you'd have a net. And then a lot of times we're going to give you a net and then see if you can mentally fold it back up and ask for what that solid would be. And then we ended today with the cross section, which is when you take a plane and you intersect it with a three-dimensional solid, and whatever that intersection would be the cross section. Okay, there it is. That's